Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Two Rivers Tuesday. This is our podcast where we discuss the sermon and highlight fun things from our church. I'm here with John Teague today. How are you, John?
Good morning, Maggie. I'm doing well. Yourself?
I'm well. It feels like crispy outside.
Crispy. Yes, there is a little crisp in the air.
Yes.
Yeah, in the 50s in the morning. I love it.
Yes, it feels so great. All right, let's highlight some things in our church family. So talk about some things that are going on right now, and what are you excited about?
I'm excited about your hat that
Oh my
you're wearing. Maggie has a hat on. If you're watching this podcast, Maggie has a hat on. If you're not, just imagine it. And then I'd like to know, maybe you could write us a letter, because I did talk about letters on Sunday.
Yes.
Write us a letter and tell us what hat you would imagine Maggie wearing. So
if you had to guess,
what would it say?
Yes.
What would the hat say?
Okay, that's a good one. That's a good one.
But
Let me just tell y'all that if you see me wearing a hat, you can be certain that I have not washed my hair in a really long time.
Yeah.
Yes.
In a really long time. Like, how's a long time?
Let me see. When did I last wash my hair? Thursday.
Today is Tuesday.
Yeah.
Brantley Robinson would say that's not bad at all.
Yeah, it's not bad at all. It depends. Yeah, it's all relative. Do you wash your hair every single day?
Every day.
Every day.
Every day.
Jesse?
No, I'm with you. Like 3-4 days.
When people have long hair, I feel like, that they care more about their hair.
Yes.
And it's not as good for your hair to wash it every day.
But
that's what I've been
I
told.
feel like you could get away with not washing your hair for a long time. Like, I feel like your hair you wouldn't be able to tell.
What are you trying to say about my hair?
I just feel like if it was greasy, you wouldn't know.
Okay. Good recovery. I need to say something on this podcast as a bit of a confession that I was thinking about on the way in here, since you were talking about not washing your hair since Thursday. I forgot to brush my teeth this morning.
Oh, that's terrible.
Yeah, it feels gross now.
Yeah, it's like
I mean, I'm
fuzzy.
drinking coffee, so it's like, it feels like it's just making it.
Tell me about
worse.
how that happened. Is that not like in your routine to do that every morning?
No, it's totally in my routine, but I was running late. It felt so good this morning. I was trying to cram a run in before the day kicked off. And then I just ran out of time.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, I need to brush my teeth. And then I was trying to do some things that I've talked about this in sermons before, because my life is on display for everyone. Katie will often give me a to-do list before she leaves for work, because she leaves before I do. And so I was like, shoot, I got to do all the things that Katie asked me to do. And so I chose that over brushing my teeth, which I will say,
funny.
I will stand on that being a great decision.
Wow.
Yes, to do all the things that Katie asked me to do and not worry about brushing my teeth.
Something's got to give.
Something's got to give. So I didn't brush my teeth, but we digress. You have a hat on.
Yep.
It says Banff on it because you went to Banff National Park in Canada this summer. I bet that's where you got your hat. Guess what? We didn't plan this, but we're both representing Banff, because look at my coffee mug. I am representing a coffee mug that says Banff National Park. I don't even know if that'll be in focus or not on the camera, but I got this when Katie and I went to Banff last year.
Yeah.
It was last summer. So
Most beautiful place in the world.
it's a fantastic place.
It's up there.
It's wonderful. Okay, let's celebrate things that are going on in the life of our church family.
Yes. All right. So there is so much going on right now. I was just thinking about how sweet of a season we're in. Like, our church is just like fully alive. There's so many great things happening. So our life groups are up and running. I think we're in week 3 of life groups, which is exciting. Our men's and women's Bible studies are going. Our women are in there right now studying the Bible together. Our Discover class is going. So on Sunday, lots of faces came in to hear more about who we are and are considering membership with us, which is so exciting. We had prayer night last night, which was so sweet and was a really good time together.
Hey, let's talk about that. Yeah. What, for those who have not had a chance to make a prayer night, and you always do such a great job talking about that when it's coming up and reminding us all that, hey, we've got prayer night coming up and you should come and here's why. But even just last night, it was awesome.
Yes.
There were some things that got, that the Lord put his hand on last night. I guess I'll say it like that, like where he just was like touching someone's heart, and they were praying and being vulnerable, and people were praying for others, and it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I always leave just being like reminded that the Lord speaks to us, and that's amazing.
Yeah.
And I forget that if
Yes.
I just like go through my day-to-day life. It's so easy to lose sight of how big of a deal that is, how special that is. And so prayer night, to me, I love it just because it's a space where I am kind of forced to listen, and
Yeah.
I need that.
Yeah. And I just want to encourage all of us real people out there. Like I was driving to prayer night and kind of like not feeling it.
Oh,
you know?
same. Yeah.
I mean, like it's 7:00 on a Monday night. Like you're like trying to get the ball rolling on your week, or the train has left the station and it's running fast and you're trying to get, everywhere. Like we had all that. The Teagues had all that on Monday night, with one child getting out of practice after school and needing a ride, and then another child needing a ride to another practice later on in the evening, and then dinner in between.
Yeah.
I get all of that. So I just want to say, don't wait until you're feeling like it to try to make that happen.
Yes.
You just need to decide, I'm going to make this happen, because that's what of course I had to do that, like, and I never leave regretting that I was there.
Yes. Yeah. I agree
The
completely.
Lord speaks, and if nothing else, you just get to sit and soak in it, so
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
really
That
good.
reminds me of what you said a few weeks ago about like getting around food that satisfies.
Yeah.
I think like
that's food that's
so often we go towards other things, and that is something that is just like a good discipline, and when you go you will leave feeling satisfied. So yeah, that's something definitely worth celebrating. Our student ministries just had fall camp, which I'm excited to hear more about. Keep an eye out next week in the newsletter. One of the stories we share will be from fall camp, so I'm excited to tell everybody that story.
Yeah, speaking of that, we've sort of revamped our weekly email, and you're in charge of that, and you've been sending that out on Thursdays with some kind of good news types of stories.
Yeah.
So two things about that. One, you guys should make sure you don't just, swipe that email into your archive or trash or whatever, or leave it unread with all the other Kohl's ads in your email.
Kohl's ads.
That's just like, it'll always be that for me.
Yes.
So yeah, you should read it. And two, like if you've got a story, like you've seen God do something cool in our church family, we'd love to hear about it.
Yes.
So let Maggie know.
Yeah.
Maggie@2rc.org.
Yes, and there's even a fun little button in the email. So if you read the newsletter,
even better.
right under the good story, there's a little button you can click and share a good story with me. And it doesn't have to be like, I feel like what excites me about these stories is it doesn't have to be some like insane earth-shattering story. Like I want us to see God's hand and his kindness to us in like the seemingly little things, and
Yes.
for us to have eyes to see that those are not little things. So would
right.
love to hear y'all's stories. What else can we celebrate? Anything else coming up or on your mind? We have men's retreat coming up.
Men's retreat. I'm pumped about that. Just a weekend away with the dudes. That's going to be really fun. And I am excited about the things that Jake and his team have planned, and the guys who are going to be sharing. It's just such a cool picture of the goodness of God to our church family.
Yes.
To have men like we have in our church, and then just getting to be together for a weekend. It's worth it. If you haven't signed up, guys, if you're listening, watching, and you haven't signed up, you need to do it, because it's going to be a great weekend.
Yes, for sure. All right, are you ready to jump into the sermon?
Yes.
Awesome. Were you not sure?
Well, I had some other thoughts, but I mean, I could talk about nothing all day. So
All right, let's jump in. But before we jump into this past Sunday sermon, let's rewind even a little further back. We didn't get a chance to kind of unpack the beatitude, blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God. So talk a little bit about some of the things that you were on your heart for that one.
yeah, well, I didn't, there was a lot of things that I didn't get to say because I ran out of time. And I think that one of the things that I would like to highlight about this, so that we don't go on without saying this, because I think it actually connects to what we're going to talk about today from the sermon on Sunday, is that this idea of pure in heart. One of the things that I said was it's not about perfection, it's about direction. Okay, so I want us to keep that in mind, like, because otherwise we're like, well, pure in heart, come on,
Yeah.
how do we do that? We should remember that we've been declared pure. We've been washed clean, cleansed of our sin in by the blood of Jesus Christ. So we have been declared pure, but we should desire purity in our hearts. And that desire, that hunger and thirst for relational wholeness and righteousness with God, they all, all these Beatitudes kind of work together. That should create in us like a hunger and a desire for a purity in our heart that we said was unmixed or unalloyed. That's what that word actually means. So one of the ways that I wanted to talk about this is by using the word integrity. So integrity is when what goes on the outside matches up with what's going on the inside. I mean, that's one way to define that word. I mean, we could also, I used to define it real simply when I was a student ministry pastor. I would just say integrity is doing the right thing even when it's hard.
Yes.
Right? It's also doing the right thing when no one's watching.
Yes.
Right? But the idea of that, the way it's connected to being pure in heart is that there's a desire in your heart that longs to see God and to honor him, and then that comes out in your words and in your actions, right? So there's an alignment there. There's not like a two-facedness,
Yeah. Is that where the word integrated comes from?
Integrate, yes.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, that makes
Yeah.
sense.
So there's a connection there, internal to external, and so I wanted to make sure I highlighted that as we kind of move from pure in heart to being a peacemaker, because I think that sometimes we're not at peace in our hearts, but we try to act like we're at peace out externally.
Yeah.
And that's a disconnect. There's a mix there that's going on, and so that's why those things are connected.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. That's helpful. So let me kind of unpack what's happening in my mind and you see if this relates to what you're saying.
Yeah.
So I can remember a season in my life where I feel like I wasn't integrated. So like what was happening on the inside was not matching the outside that I was like projecting. And so like what that looked like was like I knew I like needed to appear and wanted to appear like I did have like a really good connection and communion with Jesus, but on the inside I wasn't actually like investing in that or like really doing the things I that like one part of me wanted to be doing to have that fellowship with Jesus. So I felt like disintegrated. Is that the word?
Yeah, you disintegrated.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was not like fully integrated, and that was like a lack of integrity too, because like what I was projecting and like wanted to appear did not match what was truly happening.
Yeah.
So it was like a lack of integrity and like a lack of a pure heart, because like I didn't have, I guess, like a clean conscience too, like that kind of like disintegration where like those two things don't match. Like when you live like that, you like feel the weight of that, and like you constantly feel the like I'm not matching.
Yes.
Anyways, and so because of that, like I didn't like see God in all of the places and didn't like see him in my life and like see him fully and see him truly. So like, is that at all like in the realm of what you're talking about, and like does that happen to other people?
You nailed it. And of course it happens to other people. That's part of our brokenness. It's part of what Jesus came to deliver us from, right? Like and so the beautiful aspect of the gospel in this is that your salvation is not dependent upon you getting that right.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Like Jesus came and got that right for you. And now because of him and his spirit that lives within you, you are working toward that. Like like it's a direction you're going in, to go back to that, not perfection, but direction. It's kind of like, that's the direction you're pointed in. You want more of that in your life.
Yes. Yeah.
And so I alluded to this on Sunday, and I had one of those like moments where like I often will have this where I will say something or share something on a Sunday morning, and then like on Monday morning I'm like, oh my gosh, what did I tell them? Like what did I tell them about me? They probably think awful things about me. And one of the things that was, that's ugly about me that I shared is that I can have a really ugly, angry heart. and you don't see it maybe on the outside. Sometimes you do. But people closest to me,
Right.
where my guard goes down, they see it.
Mm.
But that's a disintegration. That's a lack of integrity. There's some junk in my heart that I am able to most of the time keep covered up.
Mm-hmm.
But gosh, even just this past week or so, the Lord's been like teaching me some things about this, and I think the thing that the phrase that just keeps coming to my mind is, that's no way to live. I feel like that's what the Lord's been saying to me. Hey, look at this. Look at what you're trying to like hold on to in your heart through anger and bitterness, being critical or judgmental or self-righteous. Like, gosh, that's no way to live. There's a better way to live. And that way that he's invited me into, there's a lot of peace in that. There's no peace when you are in turmoil and what is going on the outside is not lined up with what's going on the inside.
Yes.
You are not at peace.
Yes. Yeah. And do you feel, now that you have kind of put some of that into the light, do you feel like you are more integrated, or like do you feel like you are like starting to step into more peace now that like that's known by others, or like you're like starting to be free from it and so you feel more whole?
I was feeling that way before I said it, honestly, because I was doing that work with the Lord, and so it just kind of. But I would say this: I was free to tell everybody about it because of the peace that I have with the Lord.
Yes.
It's hard because that was like a one-way deal, like I have the microphone, everybody else is sitting there.
Yes.
Where I think that where you might be pointing me, and I would agree with you, is that like in a situation like interpersonally, or even like during Engage the Heart at Life Group, when you're able to share some of those things that the Lord's doing in your heart, or sharing some of that like lack of that disintegration, so to speak, there is real freedom in getting that off your chest and having someone receive that confession, hear that, know that about you, but then like look you in the eye and be like, I still love you, man.
Yes. Yeah.
I love you even more.
Yeah, that is so powerful. Yeah. I love what you just said about how like you were free to do that because of the peace that you have with God, which kind of ties into what you talked about on Sunday, is that like because we have peace has been made for us between us and God, like because of that we are now free to make peace with others from that peace that we have with God, but also we're free to be at peace with like, this is my stuff, and like I can freely confess it, and like I can be known because I already have peace with God. And so like nothing can take that away from me. And like the biggest threat to me was my sin, and that has already been like overcome, and like peace has been made there.
Yes.
And so like I'm now free to put that out there and like be known, and that's in the light, because that peace isn't going anywhere. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So let's talk about Sunday. Let's talk about peacemaking. You said, that one of the main things that can motivate us to keep making peace is that like peace has been made. So how was that peace made? And talk to us a little bit about like what you mean by that.
How is the peace made? Well, let's see. Romans 5:10, I believe, says that we were enemies of God, but then we were reconciled to him through the cross of Jesus Christ. And Colossians 1 says we've been given peace, or he's made peace with us by the blood of his cross. And Ephesians chapter 2 tells us how he came to those who were far off, the Gentiles. He came to those who were, quote unquote, near, the Jews, and he preached peace to all of us and brought us all together into one big family. And he made peace with one another, and then peace with us and God. So and he bought that peace. He bought it with his blood. I was listening to a song this morning. It's called "Oh Come to the Altar," and there's a line that says, "Forgiveness is bought with the precious blood of Christ." our forgiveness was bought with the precious blood of Christ. And on Sunday, I said that peace is a costly treasure.
Mm-hmm.
It is a treasure. It is precious.
Mm-hmm.
It was bought by the blood of Christ.
Yes, yeah. And so every time we make peace, we are acting like God. Like he was the like original and founding like peacemaker.
Yeah.
He reconciled, and therefore after that, every act of reconciliation and every time we bring peace to something, that's only because of what he has done, but also we're getting to like model and look like him because we're his sons.
Mm-hmm.
And so talk a little bit about that idea of like getting to be like him, not just in like we're in the family of God, but like in character.
Well, yeah, there's something about that is, we kind of joke sometimes about like, oh, I'm turning into my dad, you know, like, oh, I sound just like my mom. But like in a way, it's like this beautiful compliment. It's this beautiful statement of who you are and who you came from. And when you make peace with others, especially when there's great offense, because our offense toward God was great. And when we do that, we are like, we look like him. We look like Jesus. And that's a pretty powerful statement.
Yeah.
I would hope that would motivate us.
Yes.
You know?
Yeah.
I don't know if I answered your question.
No, that is helpful. So what are some of the reasons you feel like maybe we don't make peace, or what kind of hinders us at times?
Okay. Well, I might derail us, but I have one thought, and you probably have better ones and more than this. But I think one of the reasons we don't make peace is because we like to hold on to our anger and our bitterness and our and how we've been wronged. There's some insidious lie that we believe that like that that there's justice in that.
Yes.
And the problem is, and I think I was talking to Jesse about this last week maybe, and I don't remember who said it. I think it might have been Buddha, actually. So I'm going to quote Buddha on the podcast. But it was something like when we refuse to forgive, and we just hold on to that root of bitterness and anger in our hearts, and we don't go to make peace. It's like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die.
Wow. Whoa. That's
Think
good.
about that.
Yeah.
You're the one, I mean, like they were the one who injured you, and you've been injured now, and now you're going to finish the job.
You don't want to let them off the hook.
Yeah, by holding on to that bitterness. And I'm thinking about some dear friends right now, who have so many reasons to be hurt. They've been hurt, and I don't ever want to pretend like making peace is easy, because it you know, it's one thing to make peace with your, you know, like with Jake because you know, we're running late and you kind of fired off a angry comment at him or something, you know, like that's one thing. It's another thing when someone has deeply hurt you, has betrayed you. What do you do with that? And I would just say, blessed are the peacemakers. Blessed are the peacemakers. Jesus says there is blessing in making peace. And Paul said, as far as is up to you, you know, be at peace with all men. And so I think that in the big, in the little, and in the really, really big or deep, however you want to look at that, like there's a call to us to be able to release the anger and the bitterness, because it's no way to live. It's no way to live.
Yeah. In those kind of circumstances like that you're talking about, where it just feels like so painful and so big, and the offense is just overwhelming. I think the call is to entrust to God that injustice that you have suffered.
Yes.
And so you talked about that on Sunday, but what might that actually look like? Like, how do I do that?
Lots and lots of conversation with God. I mean, it looks like praying to God and saying, Lord, I'm bringing this back. I laid it down, you know, an hour ago. I picked it back up. I snuck in and grabbed it,
Yeah.
and I'm holding on to it again. I need to lay it back down. You are the just judge, and you will take care of this. You will discipline your children. You will judge one day the evil and the wicked in this world, and it will be awful. And it will be right, and it will be just. And so, we have to just keep entrusting the things that have come at us, and that have the offenses, the hurts, the injustices. We have to entrust those to God as the only one who can really judge justly. Like we cannot even judge justly. And when we try to do that, and this is going to be maybe a hard pill to swallow, but when we can't let someone go for something they've done, we are being self-righteous, as if we couldn't do that, or we wouldn't ever do that to someone else, right? But we are quick to sort of categorize, label, or rank, whatever offenses we may be guilty of in our lives, and think, but I didn't do that. And I'm not trying to minimize what's been done to you, but we need to remember we are very capable of it. In fact, probably guilty of it.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the idea of being poor in spirit. Right?
Yes.
Like we have to realize apart from Christ, we're just as capable of those same offenses. We would be there apart from him. We are there sometimes even with him. We need Jesus just as much as that person that offended us does. I think too, when you've suffered these capital H hurts that are just big, there has to be space to lament that, and just mourn that and all of that. And then like you were saying, just knowing that in the life to come, all will be made right, and trusting the Lord with that, and forgiving over, working to forgive over and over and over.
Yes.
That's hard.
Yes. It's really hard.
Yeah. All right. Before we end, let's get practical really quick. What are some things whenever you're going into a situation where you want to make peace, or you're trying to help others make peace? Do you have any kind of practical things you find yourself saying a lot, or things you try to keep in mind in those situations?
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing, and I didn't say it on Sunday, but just the first thing we need to do when we're wanting to make peace is to pray and invite the Lord to be very present with you, and to lead you and guide you, to give you ears to hear and the words to say, and to go before you and prepare the way for that conversation. That's just really important. You want to be prayed up, right?
Yes.
How many times have you responded to something and you did not pray about that, or you probably would not have hit send, or whatever it was, I just that's the most important thing, is to pray and invite the Lord into that. And then I think that a lot of times when I'm talking to married couples, we talk a lot about communication of conflict, and when you come in with you statements, it immediately puts the person on the defensive, right? You did this, and you always, and if and you didn't, you failed, or whatever. You. When you can start with I long for a friendship with you where there's trust, and when this thing happened, I didn't feel like I could really trust you, and I wanted you to know how that felt.
Yes.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's good.
It's it's nuanced, and I'm not saying you can't use the word you, but just don't go off firing you did this.
Attack.
That'll create the fighting will continue,
Yes.
instead of a negotiation for peace.
Yes.
And then I would just say also that we need to leave our pride. I don't know, wherever we need to leave it.
Yes. Yeah.
In the trash can.
Yes.
We don't need to pick it up and take it with us, because it's really hard to make peace and be prideful at the same time. So we have to have humility.
Yes.
Because we got to own whatever part it is that we may need to own in this situation.
Yeah. Anytime I'm going into something like that, I just mentally picture just laying on the sword. I'm just I'm gonna own as much of it as I can. This is gonna cost me something. I want to die to myself and just like own all that I can possibly own. And that helps so much.
Yes. It's very disarming.
Yes. That's so true. Yeah. So I think in closing, I just want to encourage everybody to remember Jesus, because he like sacrificed his life to make peace, but also the comfort for us who have been hurt, who have suffered injustices, is that he knows what that's like. He knows what it's like to be misunderstood by his friends, to be mistreated by his friends, to be betrayed. And so when you're feeling those hurts and those wounds, know that he knows how you feel, and he can comfort you in those places.
Yeah, I think that it's toward the end of 1 Peter chapter 2, I believe, if you want to go like look that up and read that, about how Jesus suffered unjustly, and he didn't respond with insult and reviling in return. And that's a comforting thing for me.
Yes. Yeah.
An example for all of us.
Yep. And we can receive that peace because of him. All right. Well, thank you for listening, and we'll be back next week.
See ya.